Well, speaking of things that don't distract you with irony,
Yeah,
so up until this show actually turns bad, I think that we're going to keep on watching X-Men 97.
I think so too. Yeah.
Because for those of you who didn't see last week's episode, we both at the end of that episode and we went, well, I want to see what happens next.
Yeah.
um, I've described this phenomena before where it's like I'll occasionally watch a movie or a TV show and I think to myself, this is so good it almost pisses me off because it reminds me that like because you can kind of convince yourself that, well, maybe it's because I was younger when I was watching some of these things and they stuck their claws into me and
Yeah.
like I had that sensation with Godzilla -1 and Puss in Boots. Where it's like this is so good that why is this so hard? Why is this so hard to do?
Yeah.
And I kind of had that sensation with this show because it's like, so this is a superhero show that is willing to like be kind of lighthearted at times, but takes itself seriously when it needs to take itself seriously.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the deal is.
Yes. I don't know how to feel at this moment. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's get into some non-spoiler thoughts. So what this episode basically did was what it seems like they're doing is they're blasting through some 80s and 90s Claremont storylines that they either couldn't or didn't have time to do back in the original 90s cartoon.
Yes. Yeah. It's you've got uh, of course. I guess I don't know if this is it would be considered a spoiler, but Oh, okay. And it just says, yeah, the Goblin Queen. So you put it right in the comment.
Yeah, yeah, this is the Goblin Queen story,
Yeah.
uh, slash Inferno. Um, but like previous episode, they had the trial of Magneto,
Yeah.
um, and yeah, it's interesting that Ninja mentions it as destructive. I think that I will say that for spoiler thoughts when we're gonna
Yeah.
go more into it. Um, Interesting highlights of this one. I feel like the animation is getting better as they go along because they had a fight scene in basically the depths of hell that was, and another one in an old church that were both like really awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. Like the one in the mansion, it actually reminded me of Akira. Like when they all start hallucinating. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. There was definitely some yokai reference. It felt like a yokai reference when the elevator came down and it opened up and there was just an eye there. Made me think of like a bunch of manga, like things like Chainsaw Man and things like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd say the voice acting. If the I'm just gonna look this up 1 second
Yeah.
because it sounds like the guy who's playing Wolverine is either doing a better job with his Wolverine impression or the original voice actor is getting more back into the groove.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, I meant to look up who all the
All right.
voice actors are.
Jennifer Hale is Jean Grey again, and she's doing an amazing job. Which, considering that
Yes.
Jean was kind of the nothing character from the '90s cartoon, the one who they didn't even give a superhero name.
Yeah. Ew.
So this is a new voice actor. So
Okay.
he's zeroing in on his Wolverine. Oh wait, no, never mind. This is the original actor.
What is it? Okay.
So yeah, he's getting back into the groove of it, I guess.
Yeah.
He actually isn't that much older than us.
Really?
1977.
Oh wow. Yeah.
Wait,
So
no, that
he's
doesn't seem right. One
oh
second.
no. Yeah. No.
Okay, that's years active. Okay, so he isn't
Oh.
actually. Wikipedia doesn't know his birthday, so they just have his. Okay, okay, okay. That
Yeah.
makes more sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Because let's say he would have been like a teenager when
Yeah.
when the original show was on.
um, and yeah, like I just was entranced the whole time. This show is continuing to be worth watching, which
Yeah.
I cannot think of the last bit of mainstream superhero entertainment I thought that with.
Yeah, yeah, especially on Disney Plus. Um,
Yeah.
um, but and I actually remembered something. So we talked. I think we talked about it last week with the creator of the show
Hmm.
getting fired a couple of days before the airing. Um, Ninja says, "Who even remembers Jean's multiple superhero names? Wasn't she Marvel Girl?"
Yeah. Marvel Girl, Phoenix, and Jean Grey,
Yeah,
which I guess for the 90s cartoon, you don't want to call her Phoenix because that would spoil the Phoenix storyline that they hadn't gotten to yet.
right. Yeah,
And Marvel Girl is kind of an odd superhero name for someone clearly in her 20s.
yeah.
So
But
it makes enough sense to just call her Jean.
yeah. Um, but yeah, the Bo DeMeo was his name, and
Hmm.
I remember like when they first started working on the show, he said that if you wanted to, if anyone wanted to work on the show, they had to be a fan of the original, and he wanted
Right.
to stay true to the original TV show, which um, so far he did a really good job with that.
It,
Um,
yeah, like
um,
it's in keeping, like, and they're getting to do more adult cool things that they would never have gotten away with on Fox Kids.
oh yeah. Um, so yeah, so him getting fired was actually probably a bad thing.
Yeah, hopefully that whatever staff he assembled for his hand is through the first two seasons at
Yeah,
least, and hopefully whatever staff he assembled keeps it up for season three.
yeah, yeah.
Um, Now, as far as like the like all okay, so we tend to follow a lot of people who kind of decry things for being woke,
Mhm.
and sometimes we agree with them, sometimes we disagree with them. I will say that this show is managing to thread a needle I didn't think I would it could thread.
Mm.
Morph is very clearly gay.
Yes.
Like the last couple episodes, the first two episodes, like okay,
Yeah.
okay, you know, it's
Mm.
but no, at this point, Morph is either gay or he is the type of uh, homophobic asshole who likes to uh, make jokes like he's gay just to bother people.
Yeah.
Because like, there's a scene where he comes in on Wolverine in the shower and offers to help him reach those hard to reach places.
Yeah.
um, Now at the same time, it's like, do I find this upsetting? No, they never really gave Morph a sexuality originally.
No, and I always thought he was a little, odd or different that way. When I was
Yep.
watching the show. Yeah.
Um, Now, if they actually put him in a relationship with Wolverine, then I will be unhappy because
Yes.
that would violate my sense of who Wolverine is. But so far, it's just like it is a subtle thing that's in the show, and it informs the character, and I'm cool with it.
Yes. Yeah.
Uh, Now they very clearly have Wolverine still carrying a torch for Jean, so that's
Yeah. It's yeah.
but yeah,
It's
like
yeah.
yeah. So we managed to have a sexuality reveal of a character, and I did not mind it
Yeah.
because it's actually embed. You know what? Here's kind of the funny thing. One of the funny things about some of the uh, how to put it, you start associating certain elements with being bad when the problem isn't those elements. It's the fact that you're watching bad media.
Yeah.
It's like, and this is actually how what kills trends. Like, you had decades of good westerns, and then you suddenly had people like I think there were years in the 60s or 70s where, thanks to foreign cinemas or former foreign movie studios getting into it, you literally had hundreds of westerns released every year. Of course, you're going to drown out the good content with crap, and of course, you're going to overload the market, and
Yeah.
people are going to start assuming that they don't like westerns.
Yeah.
Or it's like all the people saying, "Man, I hate superheroes now." No, you don't hate superheroes. You hate bad superhero media, and you're starting to assume that superhero media is bad.
Yeah.
It's like this show is doing a good job of making me question some of my assumptions about things.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. And Ninja says, yeah, Morph was barely in the original show.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, when did he come? When they bring him back? Like the third season?
Yeah, somewhere in there, it was like Mr. Sinister brought him back to life,
Yeah.
which they call back to in this.
Yes.
Uh, yeah, so if you don't want to know anything about this episode, of course you'll have to watch the first couple episodes to know what's going on. But
Mhm.
overall, this stepped it up in a bunch of ways.
Yeah. Yeah.
Spoiler time.
Yes.
So, Ninja described the original Goblin Queen storyline as very destructive to Cyclops, and he isn't wrong.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with that one?
Not really.
Okay, so I've read the storylines where they introduced Madeline Pryor and a little bit of Inferno.
Okay.
Um, so basically, what happened was Jean Grey died on the moon.
Okay.
Scott was sad. Scott ended up leaving the X-Men after Storm beat him in a fight and took over the team.
Mm.
Because they basically they were both arguing about who should be the leader of the X-Men, and they settled it with a fight in the Danger Room.
Ah.
So he goes up to Alaska and he meets a redhead named Madeline Pryor, who is suspiciously a dead ringer for Jean Grey.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'm starting to remember a little bit of that. Yeah.
Um, so time passes. The two of them eventually get married, and they have a son who they name Nathan. And
Okay.
then I forget who had this brilliant idea, but someone basically took his high school comic book club's idea of how to bring Jean Grey back to life by saying, "Oh, that wasn't the Phoenix. The real Jean Grey has been in a suspended animation for a long time." Uh,
Mm.
So Jean Grey got brought back in, of all things, a Fantastic Four comic because I think John Byrne was writing it at the time and he liked the idea.
Ah. Okay.
Um, and then they had X Factor, which X Factor was the original X-Men team. And in the
Mm.
pages of X Factor, you now have Cyclops, who is married to a twin of his dead wife, or of his dead ex-girlfriend, who he is married to and has had a child with, but he is feeling closer to the real version of what he wanted on the team. So I always kind of forget this storyline when I feel like it didn't make sense for Cyclops to cheat on Jean with Emma Frost.
Yeah.
But I guess it goes back to the '80s with him not being the most loyal guy.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, Ninja says he's a Cyclops Malin Pryor stan.
Yeah. So now the benefit that this has as far as not destroying Cyclops' character is that because they've basically compressed the whole thing down, where what appears to be a clone of Jean Grey shows up, but testing quickly shows that she's the real one, and the Jean that he had a baby with is not the real Jean.
Right. Yeah.
Um, you basically very quickly bring that to a head. It's not like he's having to deal with the two of them around for months on end.
Right. Yeah.
And they also are very clear, like, we don't know when we got switched.
Hmm.
So that basically means they don't have to cite a time when this happened, and they can kind of move on from it. So
Yeah.
so Scott is like so Scott. It's not even clear if Scott could be like Scott is kind of blameless in this insofar as like it's not like he cheated on anybody because how could he know?
Right. Yeah. 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 She thought he thought she was Jean Grey. Yeah.
And she thought she was Jean Grey.
Yeah.
Um, Now, as far as subplots are continuing, Gambit is still jealous of Rogue and Magneto and is worried something is going on there.
Yeah. Because there's a part in there where they Gambit, Wolverine, and Morph are walking out of the danger room, and like, oh, let's book the danger room, and they see like Rogue and Magneto have booked it solid for like the next 3 days.
Yeah, which was weird.
Yeah.
to be fair, I suppose it's possible that well, actually, was that before or after um, Madeline went crazy, go nuts under Mr. Sinister's influence?
I think it was just before, or
Okay, so yeah, that wasn't Madeline Pryor starting to mess with their perception of things because
yeah,
that's kind of unrealistic.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, so yeah, Mr. Sinister is basically all the voices that she's heard in her head, and he forces her to steal Nathan and come to him.
right, yeah, and she gets her Goblin Queen outfit, which I'm surprised they went there with that. You know,
This is definitely being made for an older audience. It's like they're basically going, okay, anybody who's interested in this is going to be 40 by now,
yeah,
especially if they are hip to the X-Men comics we're referring to.
yes, yeah,
Um, so then, uh, so you get some cool set pieces where they are fighting Madeline's illusions.
hmm
Uh, they feel like they've been drawn down into hell, and everybody gets to do some cool stuff.
yeah. There's a cool little part where Cyclops powers up Bishop with his optic blast.
Yeah, I remember thinking to myself, wouldn't that be just as powerful to have Cyclops blast them directly? And I said, shut up, nerd.
Yeah,
Let Bishop have a moment.
yeah,
What I'll say is that Bishop is able to go double barrel with his hands at the same time. So
right,
that's
yeah,
the advantage of juicing him up.
yeah, yeah,
Um, and then you have a cool fight scene with Magneto trying to use his magnetism versus Madeline Pryor's telekinesis in a church with
yes,
actual
and
blood.
yeah, that was surprising. Yeah,
Actually, a fair amount of blood.
yeah,
Um, the other thing is that what people were saying, Morph is gender fluid. What it seems like they're using Morph to do. So in the original Inferno storyline, Colossus's sister Ileana gets gets brain whammied, and I think because of the nature of her magic that she wields, she was vulnerable to whatever was going on with the Goblin Queen. Not a storyline I've read too much.
yeah,
Um, and then, but the reason I mentioned magic is that Morph turns into her, and so first he shows up in her like New Mutants costume, and it seems like Morph can when he turns into somebody, he can manifest metal.
yeah. Because
Like
he turned into Colossus in the first or second episode, and he was Colossus in his metal form.
yeah, and he also fought as Psylocke, I think,
Yeah.
possibly with a sword as well. And so
Yes.
it's like if he can turn like parts of him into a metal sword, that's actually pretty powerful.
Yeah.
But so they basically had him turn into magic. Then Goblin Queen gave him a brain whammy, and he turned into magic in her alternate evil costume that they like to whip out every so often.
Yeah.
Um, and so that what I feel like they're doing with Morph is he is their way to throw member berries at the audience for people who know that like who would be disappointed by a version of the Goblin Queen storyline that didn't have magic getting uh, turning into that.
Yeah.
So it's a way to include characters they don't have the space for.
Right. Yeah.
And then you do have Jean helping break Madeline out of it, and then they rush into oh Mr. Sinister has infected their son Nathan with the techno-organic virus, and they have
hmm
to make the hard choice of they've been early on in the episode they set up that they were getting Bishop his time bracelet so they could send him into the future to so he could go back home.
Yeah.
And now it's like, well, he can bring Nathan with him, but Cyclops is just torn up by the idea of having to give up his son and abandon him the way his father abandoned him.
Right. Yeah. And yeah, very tear jerking scene, and um, of course, and if you know anything about the X-Men lore, Nathan is
Cable.
Cable. Yeah.
Yep. So I forget, they didn't actually, did they actually get to where Bishop went back to the future with him, or is that to be seen yet?
Oh, when he Bishop going to the future with
Yeah,
um,
Nathan.
Nathan. Yeah, yeah. He goes to the future. Yeah,
He did leave. Okay,
he
I
did.
think I must have looked away there because, maybe there was something in my eye after watching Madeline say goodbye to her son
Yeah.
in a serene telepathic mindscape.
Yes.
And we got the teaser for next time, which they're playing around with. So they had Storm lose her powers last episode.
Yeah.
Originally, that was due to a machine made by Forge, and so Forge was trying to help her get that back in the comics. Well,
Mm.
Forge meets her in a bar in Dallas and offers to help her out.
Yeah.
So I wonder if we're going to find out that the way to mine some drama out of that would be that, oh, he was the one who designed the device that took away her powers permanently,
Probably.
that
Yeah.
those mutant terrorists were using.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'd say it was very satisfying.
Hmm.
Some cool set pieces, and we were talking before. It's not about the ideas, about execution. I was like, man, I hate these stupid set pieces. Like, no, that was cool because they are using the characters' powers in cool ways.
Yeah. Yeah. They're very creative that way. Yeah. The writers are. They know their X-Men, and they know the power sets and where to put them to get the most effective use of them.
Yeah, and I'll say that unlike the first episode where they kind of had some goofy stuff like what Beast was doing with those Sentinels,
Mhm.
they haven't gone there again. So I think that they might be honing in on the tone of X-Men a little
Yeah.
better.
Yeah.
I would say the one criticism you could make is that they're kind of burning through storylines very quickly because in a differently paced show, this whole Madeline Pryor Inferno thing could have been that could have been the whole season subplot.
Yeah.
So I have seen some comments from people who are disappointed that they are fast forwarding through Inferno.
Hmm.
On the plus side, Ninja said, this is a destructive storyline for Cyclops.
Yeah.
Yep. And what they managed to do was boy gets off damaged, but morally scot free to pardon the pun.
Yeah. Yeah. You don't want to be too to be too devastating to the point where there's just they're it's no fun to watch them anymore.
Right. Like he didn't abandon his wife and child this time around.
Right. Yeah.
Um, and Yeah, Ninja says Wolverine now has a chance with Madeline Pryor. See, I don't think so, just because Madeline is very intentionally walking away from her old life,
Hmm.
and hooking up with Wolverine would definitely be part of her old life.
Yeah.
Uh, and Ninja says, "I'm happy that Madeline was not evil." I will say that the one thing that struck me as weird was that they she just came up with that name seemingly out of thin air.
Yeah.
Like that could have maybe used like a little bit more lines.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, like maybe when she's talking with Jean, Madeline, like our grandmother, something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. And prior, like, oh, that's mom's maiden name. You know.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
yeah, she just comes up with yeah, that could have been them bonding over it a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or fun little detail someone noticed. They had a flashback to Jean as a kid getting recruited by Professor Xavier. Do you notice what kind of doll she was carrying?
Oh, I saw it, but I can't remember what it was.
It was a little like it was like a little monster with one eye. So it's like it's
Oh yeah. Yeah.
and this show is fun. It's full of fun little eagle-eyed details like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So oh, it's an
Emergency
Amber
alert.
Alert. Fun.
Oh. Oh.
Um, but yeah, so like I said, like they're using so go back to the morph thing. The predictions like, oh, morph is gender fluid. Morph does seem to like to choose female forms to fight in more often than male forms.
Yes, he does.
I think we're 3 versus 1 so far because
Yeah. Mm.
Psylocke and Magic, and I think there was another one from the first episode who, besides
Um,
Colossus.
yeah, I can't remember who that was, but yeah,
But but again, like I'm not minding it.
yeah.
It now if they have the very special episode
No.
where where it's entirely focused on Morph coming out. Actually, no. Even then, these people are actually giving me enough faith that I think they could make that interesting.
Yeah, they could. Yeah.
The other bit of praise I'll give them is that while Sunspot and Jubilee haven't been heavily in focus, they show up.
Yeah.
Uh, the like the show is good at reminding you that no, no, we didn't forget that these characters exist. They're just in the background right now.
Right. Yeah. 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 And uh, it'd be interesting if they keep up with that whole thing with Morph turning into the different people, or if they actually do bring some of those characters in at some point.
Right. I seem to recall they did something similar with Mystique, where like when she was shapeshifting, she was turning into different characters they didn't get a chance to use,
Right. Yeah.
which does open questions like, how does he know what a Psylocke looks like? How does he know what a Magic looks like?
Yeah.
He even knows that she should have a Russian accent. So
Yeah.
it's, but they're nice little continuity nods for the old heads.
Yeah. Indeed.
So, yeah, I'm thoroughly enjoying myself, and I was not expecting to say that about a Disney Plus cartoon that's bringing back a franchise I love this year.
Yeah. Same here.
I would be very curious to know how much influence Feige's crew actually had on this one because it feels like their presence is entirely absent because there are like little moments of levity, but there is no, boy, that was a thing comedy in
Yeah.
this.
Right. Yeah. 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 I mean, yeah, I'm looking forward to the next episode. Yeah.
Yep.